All right, welcome everybody. Excited to jump in. We're going to be talking all things GTM today. I got a new friend, Channing. He's currently the Chief Revenue Officer and CEO of Americas over at Brevo. Channing, thanks for joining. How are you, my man?
Doing well. Thanks, Gabe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Sounds like you find yourself overseas hanging out. How are our friends in Paris?
Yeah, we're doing well. We've got the World Cup game going on this evening, so excited to see how that plays out here.
Oh my goodness, yeah, the World Cup stuff has been fun. So it's fun you get to experience it in multiple facets. But excited to jump into kind of the GTM stuff. You got a really cool background, which I'd love to highlight. In fact, maybe we jump into that just a little bit now. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, a little about your background, and then some of the cool things you guys are doing over there at Bremo.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Just by quick means, I joined Brevo about a little over a year ago, but I was an advisor for Brevo for about a year and a half prior to that. So I've been in and around Brevo for 2.5 years, but I think more interestingly, even I've been in and around the GTM space for a long time now. We won't go full years here, but it's been a while. Pretty much all of my career. But I did start as a consultant. I started doing financial consulting early on in my career and then moved into kind of a sales capacity and eventually took on an ops role where I led sales ops and a handful of other things at HubSpot for about 6 years,
Yeah.
where we went from 200 million to about 1.5 billion in revenue. So that was a good run for a while there. And then from that, I was able to jump into a chief sales officer at SEMrush, as president over at Brandwatch, and then now here at Brevo. So as I said, been around the space for a bit.
Yeah, that what do they say? Seen the movie before, been around the block, something like that. Definitely have seen, I'm sure, some really cool stuff. I would say that is a pretty cool story, the HubSpot. That's a big growth number. So, as you look at your background, just to highlight a couple things, you mentioned you didn't kind of initially start in sales. It was a little more like in the consult kind of realm, maybe. What was the initial push back into kind of sales, or what would you probably been a little
Yeah.
bit, but thoughts on that? People are always interested how people kind of mold and shape careers.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting path, an abnormal path, I would say, into sales. So I recall when I was went to Villanova University, and when I was coming out of Villanova, I remember thinking, what do I want to do? And I looked at this sales role, and I'm like, I don't want to do sales. Very quickly, I dismissed it, and I said, I want to do consulting because consultants solve problems, and you get variety of experiences, which I appreciate.
Yes.
So it sounded great on paper. So I go in, got this nice financial management consulting role, did it for a couple years, and then decided I wanted to leave. Variety of different reasons why. And so I looked at going down maybe the more traditional path, which was going to be, I had again strong finance background, going to go work at equity research at a big bank. So I had an offer to go there, or had this offer to go join this young tech company that was a fintech company, and they wanted someone with a finance background. And
Huh.
essentially, it was what we'd call today, a sales engineering type of role. At the time, I think it was a different title, but essentially that same type of role. So I said, let's try something small and new and interesting. Everyone, by the way, I asked said go work at the big bank.
I was
Everyone
gonna
always wants
say,
a big
I
bank
was
on
like,
their resume.
how do you make that?
So
I had a
yeah, so I said,
similar challenge in early in my career, and yeah, I mean, yeah, the big bank versus the small startup, that's a tough one. But okay, so you chose the small. You went against everybody's advice, and you went for the
everyone's
small
advice.
startup.
Yeah. So I chose the small startup, and I go in, and I remember joining and going to the first couple meetings, and of course I was young and didn't do all my due diligence, and I quickly realized we didn't actually have any customers yet.
Oh my
So
goodness,
I said,
I
well,
heard.
let me help with selling, I suppose. I'll join in on these calls because I'm supposed to be more of like a product expert, and I can help at least show the customers how to use the product. So I tagged along on some sales meetings, and the sales rep goes and gives this very generic demo. And I said, well, let me try to help a little bit. And I asked some questions. I said, let me understand the problems because I can't really just show you things without knowing the problems. So I asked a few problems, and then we showed them the answer, and they said, great, love it. Did that a few more times, and pretty quickly it turned into the sales rep saying, hey, Channing, can you just do what you did last time, and we'll see if we can sign them up. So I went in and asked a bunch of questions and showed them appropriate product features. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm selling. And all selling really is asking good questions and understanding the pain points and then relating those pain points to a solution, of course. And so I liked it. And I'm like, this is exactly what I do. I wanted to do. I want to solve problems. And that's what we do in sales is we solve problems. So that was my transition into sales. And I grew up with that business. And we took off actually after being there for a while. It really grew into a great business. But it was a lot of fun, that transition.
Fascinating. That's great, man. I love the quick kind of story and the positioning of what sales is and is not. And then it sounds like you made a little bit more of a transition back into like the sales, rev ops, sales ops type role. I mean, you've done a little bit of pendulum swinging. How was that transition? Is that just again more of your finance background as you kind of transition to that, or how did that happen?
Yeah, no, I think it stems a bit from my finance background where I have kind of this more structured way, I suppose, of thinking, more kind of data driven way of thinking about things. And I was leading up the mid market sales team at Acquia, this couple $100 million business. And at the time, and then HubSpot came knocking and I started chatting with them and they really wanted a ops leader who had a sales mindset, someone who kind of blended a little bit of both. And it's kind of hard sometimes to find that. And they liked my finance background. They liked a lot of those experiences. And I had done ops for about a year in the past as well. And ops was reporting to me also at Acquia at the time. So I had knowledge about ops. And after a bunch of coffees and conversations, I said, sure, I'll take this on, knowing that it's a blend between kind of sales and ops, although with this ops kind of title to it. And as I stepped into it, that blend and the way I looked at it as this kind of blended role, I think was very unique back at the time. But it's definitely something I really enjoyed, and I learned a lot there. And it was, in my mind, it was a point in time in my career where I probably grew the most, of course. And as we saw, HubSpot grew a lot through that window as well. But I had a really great experience that allowed me to blend sales leadership and ops leadership together.
Super fun, man. Super fun. And then you decided ultimately you were doing, I think, stage two. Yeah, you were doing some more in that kind of VCPE type realm, but you decided to get back in the game, it sounds like, and you're back to operating. Just felt like it was an awesome opportunity to jump back into something like Brevo, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, when I see businesses that have a lot of potential, it's always fun to really be a part of them as best I can.
Yeah.
So I had the chance to advise Brevo for about a year and a half prior to, jumping into this role, and I saw the potential there. So the CEO asked me if I knew anyone for two different roles. And then we said, well, maybe I'll just do them both. So worked
I
out
love
well.
it, man. So then I have to ask, so are you a sales guy now? Are you a marketing guy? Or does it even matter?
Yeah, I would say we're all salespeople. Once you get to a leadership role, we all have to play a sales role in some
Oh, I
capacity.
love that,
And
man.
at
I
my
love it.
core, that's probably who I would define
Is
myself
it
as.
you're in your core, you're more of a sales guy. No, I
Yeah.
love it. That's awesome, man. Well, I'd love to get into a little more as to kind of how Breville sees the world and some of the things you're doing there, but maybe start big picture, what you look at the GTM world today and you've operated in a bunch of different capacities, including kind of advisory. Paint the picture, like what is going on in GTM? What are some of the things that are changing? How are you seeing the world? Looking for kind of just your 100,000 view take on what the hell is going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all struggling a little bit with this one because it's moving so fast with AI obviously influencing things right now. With the amount of outbound that I'm getting, that you're getting probably is noise. There's just tons of noise, and that's probably the one word I'd say to sum up GTM right now is there's a lot of noise, and you have to find a way to filter through that noise to be heard and to be identified, and it's really hard. It's harder than I've ever seen to go
It
and
does feel that way, right? It does just feel like it's maybe I'm just getting old, but harder than it's ever been. It's just like it feels that way. It feels like it was easier 20, 15 years ago, but you know what? Grass always seems greener somewhere else.
yeah.
So that definitely resonates. That resonates.
Yeah.
So you were then saying, so it's noise. So what do you do about, how do you navigate through that? Like how does the world start to maneuver around it?
Yeah, so obviously we've got AI as the big factor for everyone,
Sure.
and how we handle it, how we build products around AI, how we differentiate through AI, how we sell leveraging AI, marketing leveraging AI, and I think the noise starts with, and for anyone who's been at a conference in the past 6 months, every product out there is called almost the same thing, but it has to have something AI tied into their product branding. So everyone has a tagline now that says, "We are the best AI blah blah blah
Yeah,
tool."
yeah.
And so it's once again, noise is in the marketing and noise is in the selling. But I think what we first of all need to kind of come back to is when we're trying to go to market with a product, we have to understand what's our core differentiator. Really, how are we differentiating our product, and then how do we talk about that without sounding the same as everyone else? And that gets into our marketing angle, but it also gets into our selling angle. And as I think of our BDRs, and I'm sure Gabe, in your businesses, you guys are very aware that outbound and that outreach, you have to have very personalized messaging that's very clear on here's the value we can bring, here are the proof points that we can offer, and let's have a conversation. Let's validate that, because the buyers are much, much more educated. And we always, every year it seems this, but it's continually getting more and more, much, much more educated on the market, on what they're looking at and thinking about. And we have to know that and recognize that, but then also come in with those proof points and that clear differentiation.
Is that kind of, yeah, as you think about that outbound motion and it getting harder and stuff, you feel like that's kind of what's resonating, again, whether it's Brevo or some of these other places, it is that you've got to make sure you understand your IC, who you're going after, their pain points and kind of, but that value differentiation and then the proof points you can offer. If you can nail that, it's not bulletproof. You're probably not getting 100% response rates on some of your emails or something like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
but you feel like that's still kind of how you coach the guys. Like you got to go
It,
back to the foundation almost. Like, man, if you can nail that, you get a customer at the right time who it resonates with. Like that is what sales is all about. You found a
it,
person who's got a problem and you got a solution.
exactly. And I ran a poll the other day on LinkedIn to try to see where are people going these days to identify new products. In our world, we're targeting marketers. So I was asking marketers, what are you doing? Where are you looking?
Yeah.
45% were coming back saying, what I'm doing is I'm going to chat GPT, choose your LLM. I'm going to my LLM to try to find something, which is really
Did they
interesting
say
because I think
45 of your poll? 45% said that.
45% were LLM. Now, the other 30%-ish, there's other choices, but these were the two big categories. 45% going into an LLM, 30% were just asking colleagues, asking other people they respected in the business. So I think that shows a lot. At first, both of these things are doing something similar because LLMs are looking for proof points. They're trying to validate this in an automated way, which is a little different than SEO. But LLMs are out there like grabbing data out of Reddit and grabbing information elsewhere to find information and find social proof that says this is a good solution for you. And then, of course, if you go and call your friend or colleague or peer and ask them, they're another proof point. So people are looking for proof points.
Fascinating, man. I mean, again, probably not the most statistically 10,000 people on your LinkedIn or something like that, but I love the very interesting points. I think that's just a good data point for some of the stuff you're saying, that things are definitely different. When we were doing this 10 years ago, nobody was
Yeah.
going on to chat GPT.
No one was going to chat GPT. And I would even argue, yes, people were asking their friends, but I think 30% is a really high number to do that
Oh
as
no,
well.
look, I mean that just I think that's a good demonstration of the noise in the market, right?
Yeah.
Like I actually would, I probably would do the same. For me, you're not too far. I'd probably actually answer about those same percentages, and part of it is it's the noise. If everybody's saying the same thing, and it's like, man, Bob or buddy, Dallas, my buddy, like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
using any of these? Because you got to go somewhere because you're just hearing this bombardment. You got to turn to the side and maybe get someone else's opinion who might not be so biased. So I actually think
Exactly.
that's pretty valid. I'll have to check that out. But good one on the LinkedIn poll. You
Yeah.
mentioned AI. Just one more touch on that. Obviously everyone's talking about it, and it's something we have to hit. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to talk about this. Is boring. Now that's
Yeah.
all we talk about. But that aside, what do you actually think is creating value today? And where is it mostly hype?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is you and I both, and everyone else out there, probably not even just in leadership roles, we're all getting hit with AI emails, AI notifications, and it's very hard to understand, is this human led or AI led? I'm getting all these text messages on voting content. There's probably AI driven text as well. So there's a lot of noise out there, but where I think the value can really come into is the personalization. AI can help us a lot in creating a hyper personalized message. And we still need human in the loop. The human in the loop concept, I think, is critical. We're not yet at a point where we can entirely depend on AI to do our jobs for us. That'll
Yeah.
change a lot of dynamics when we get there, but we still need human in the loop. But AI can help us a lot in creating this hyper-personalized effort. And we can use data to obviously drive AI. AI is driven off of data. So we can look at things like firmographic, technographic data to understand who and what we should talk about within the company. And then there's a third layer to that I don't know the right word for this. I was thinking about this actually just yesterday, but it's like personographic data. It's people data specifically. So we have firmographic, but we don't talk a lot about, and I'll call it a fake word here, personographic data, which is like, what am I doing today? What am I thinking about today? Where am I traveling to? What's showing up on my social content? Where did I go to school? Like all these things that are unique to me personally, we can personalize the content very much to that person, the role they're in, the mindset they're in. And buying product is timing just as much as anything. But through all these different data points, we can figure a lot of that out and deliver a message that resonates well with someone. And I think that's where AI really steps in, is helping with that hyper-personalized type of content.
Yeah, look, more almost an assistant, allowing people to really get better at what they do rather than maybe replace what they do in some form or fashion. I think that's been the challenge. I think some of us, probably including myself, thought we could automate everybody out of existence,
Yeah.
Do you,
We did. Gabe, just sorry,
ahead.
on the topic, just another data point in this, because I think it's really interesting. I just thought of it as relevant. We did a study, and it was an email-based study, but we did this study on email volume, and we looked at companies that increase their email volume versus companies that might not be increasing email volume. And there's a few things implied in here. But when companies started increasing email volume drastically, their click-through rates, conversion rates dropped off drastically. And the net output was actually lower than where it was before. Companies that actually got more hyper-personalized and actually reduced email volume increased the click-through rates and conversion rates to a point that made up for the drop in volume. So what that tells me, again, is that personalized message is so much more important than the volume-based delivery of anything.
Super interesting. Yeah, look, I think, and that's been true for a long time, and it's obviously playing out even more with AI. Do you think? You touch on email. I want to hear just a little bit. The double click there. You guys obviously are experts and leaders, Brevo, in some of the email world. It'd be interesting just to hear your perspective on that. I mean, you kind of just hit it, but maybe there's a double click on the state of email. We're talking a little bit about Outbound, and Brevo's not necessarily a sales development tool from the sense of, high volume email, for example, or a sales development rep using that tool, if I'm understanding right. But you guys are at the crux of different email use cases. Any other pieces in the research or facts or findings that your customers are seeing as they really double down? Email ain't dead, right? For example, I mean, it's still working, isn't it? Seems like
I mean, we've been
you're
saying
the crowd to say it's dead, but then you got people doing newsletters and they're getting 70% open rates over here. Give me what's going on. What's the state of email here?
Yeah. I feel like it's been a talk track for years and years. Email's dead, and then we come back and it's still working. So I think we're still in that same world. Email is a functional way to communicate, but we have to understand its purpose. And email can deliver certain pieces of information certain ways. When email is used best, and we saw this in the study, is if someone's just sending email, you're not going to see great open rates and response rates on content. If you're sending email, but also doing an omni-channel campaign, connecting through social, connecting through WhatsApp, connecting through SMS while sending email, your ability to deliver your message increases drastically, like 3 to 4x delivery of the message. So email is one touch point, and this goes to anything that we're selling. If we're selling B2B software, B2B products, and so on, if you can have that omni-channel experience, you're giving people different ways to engage, and that's really critical. Some people like to use email a lot still, but other people don't want to touch email. All they want to do is text or leverage WhatsApp. And so you can engage multiple ways. You can often hit more people actually directly because they have preferences, but you also allow them a chance to engage back, depending, are they walking down the street or are they sitting at their computer at home, depending on the kind of scenario as well.
Fascinating. Yeah. So high level, again, it's still, it's there, it's still working. It matters. It just depends on meeting your audience kind of where they are.
Exactly.
What do you feel like are the, and I'm thinking of Brevo in particular here, like where are you seeing people then go with email? Like, is it mostly primarily my warm database, my nurture program, as far as kind of people that have already interacted, and now I'm just trying to keep a newsletter or that warm database kind of interacting with me. You feel like people are wanting to do more cold. Sometimes you read on LinkedIn, John Doe sending 10 trillion cold emails a day, and his business is at 5K in ARR or something.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be funny. Is it mostly to communicate with customers? Like, as you guys see use cases, where do you feel like most people are like, no, look, the sweet spot still is
Yeah.
the cut. Where do you see that happen?
Yeah, it's very much communicating with your customers. That's definitely the sweet spot. And it's not finding new customers. Finding new customers is very difficult to do through email, but communicating to your customers, because it's long form content. That's the difference between email and an SMS, let's say. And so customers want to learn more about your product. They already have that trust. They've accepted, it's not blocked and put in your spam folder. They've accepted those emails. So they want to read about it, and they have the time to read about it. Usually emails consumed on a laptop, less so than on a phone, whereas SMS is obviously the opposite, usually consumed on a phone. So you're looking for more short form content on your phone, but on your laptop, you're comfortable with slightly longer form content, which breeds very well into that idea of customer communication and sharing more detailed information. And that's where we're seeing email continue to really thrive.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's interesting to hear from someone who's in it day to day there. So,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I want to wrap, but maybe just kind of end with kind of a recommendation or big picture. You've led go-to-market teams at some really cool stuff. Again, kudos on a fabulous resume there. But as you've got younger people kind of starting this journey and trying to build teams and revenue functions, and we've hit on a bunch of stuff today, but what would be kind of that leave behind, or how do you do it, or any advice to people who are trying to kind of climb the ladder and be this chief revenue officer at a company, whether it's small or big? Where do you go?
Yeah. So off the cuff here, a couple things I would think of right now. Number one is data. I do think data drives everything, and we have more and more data available today than we ever did, and that'll continue down that path, and we can make many more decisions off that data. And so this gets into how do we hire someone? We can use data. Who are we targeting from a ICP perspective? We can use data. How do we go about doing our outbounding? Again, we can use data. So data is the core. We have to be proficient at data as a sales leader. I think we went back 10, 20 years ago, sales leaders didn't really care about data. That was the opposite job. Sales leaders was all relationship. Data is driving sales more and more so than ever. So that's where I would start. Make sure you're very proficient at data, and you can use data to drive decisions. Number two, of course, is going to be AI. We have to touch on that, but become very AI proficient. You don't need to be the vibe coder in the company to be the CRO.
That's an interesting debate. Yeah, like where is for a while there, I think we all thought we were going to have to like spend 5 hours a day like playing in Lovable or in whatever Claude or something, but it seems like the pendulum's swinging back. Like, I don't know if it's the best use of time for a CRO to be vibe coding for 4 hours a day, right? So
exactly. And this might be controversial, but I definitely believe that you need to understand what the LLM can do for us. We need to understand how AI, we can leverage it. So you need to be capable to a certain threshold. And to be capable, sometimes you have to do some work and play with it yourself. And but you don't need to be the vibe coder. You don't need to be sitting there for, again, 5 hours a day, kind of building different bots and agents and things. But you have to understand that's capable. So one good example of this is I've been pushing my RevOps team to really think about how do we automate everything through AI. And what we've done is we've created some agents where I can go and talk to those agents. And now I've got a VP of RevOps agent, I've got a data analyst agent, I've got a few different agents, and I can talk to them, and they'll talk to one another, and they're doing the ops work for me. I know the system's capable of that. I know we can build that thing. I didn't build it myself. I let someone else do it. So having someone on the team that's highly capable, of course, is important, but all I need to know is the potential, and then I can have the team help me.
Very cool. Okay, so data, AI, you got a third one before I let you jump back to your beautiful Paris evening here?
Yes. So I think the third one I'll say is people like to buy from people still. And I'm talking B2B sales right now, not necessarily the B2C side, but B2C can apply as well. But we're still humans that are buyers. Most of our buying is human driven, and we have to build those connections. So the last piece to this, I think, is get in front of your customers. I think a lot of our younger tech companies grew up in the era where COVID was prevalent. We were all sitting behind computers for multiple years. Get back on the road, get on the airplane, visit the customers.
That's cool, man. Those are great ones. the people one in particular is resonating a lot, man. I don't love to I'm getting older. I don't love to travel, but every time I get face to face, I'm like, damn it, I got to do that more.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so good, it's so valuable, and you really do. It's just something different than some of the Zoom type stuff. So
Yeah.
awesome, Channing. I know you got to run. You got plenty of things to do. Fun to catch up with someone who, again, I think seen the movie and multiple times. So congrats on it, cool, and best of luck at Brevo. If someone wanted to touch base, maybe double click on a couple of these things, or learn about Brevo, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is catch me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the easiest way to follow me. I tend to post pretty often when I can on LinkedIn. So it's Channing Ferrer. Fortunately, there's not too many of me around, so it's pretty easy to
Yeah,
follow and find.
you got the Ferrer. That might be a little European.
Yeah,
There's
yeah, it is. It is exactly.
yeah,
So
you
yeah, that's
might
the
be
best
able
way
to
you can
get
follow
there.
me there, and then Brevo is just brevo.com. You can check us out.
Love it, love it. Again, well, appreciate the time, Channing, and for everyone else, have a fantastic day.
Cool. Thank you, Gabe. Good catching up.